let's check back in with the Trump surrender. One moment, I'll unmute this.
In a matter of moments, we do expect former President Trump to come out of the jail. We have been staked out here on the Jefferson Street side all day long, and really things picking up in the last hour. No really protesters. We've seen a couple of people, folks from Atlanta who live here, work here, go to school here, have walked by occasionally, but we haven't noticed anyone really in the last hour or two since the former president was in the air or when he landed, showing you just how significant this hard lockdown has been, which we were told about for weeks now.
This is a rather simplistic question, but why are protesters and those who are passionate about this subject not gathered on Jefferson Street, given the fact that there are really two ways in and out?
They probably locked it down.
Common sense would decree that, you know, if he's not over on that side, that they should be over on this side. I think it's curious that nobody has decided to go over there.
Right, so I can tell you the reason probably for that, there's a lot more green space over on the Rice Street side, a lot of residences over there, so it lends itself to have more of those protesters there. But we understand the motorcade at this moment is moving our way, and so we should expect this to come. We see some law enforcement vehicles in motion. You see that Dodge Charger just passed our way, and now here come the motorcycles as the president.
So that was it. It took him that little time to do his.
Jackson Airport.
There's so many police.
Sheriff's Office deputies, Georgia State Patrol, Atlanta Police, and now the black SUVs, which we.
This is so dumb. They're indicting him. Look at all this security they need just for him to go and get fingerprinted. Could you imagine if they actually locked him up? Sorry about that. Locked him up.
Those motorcycles going ahead to clear the way, making sure traffic is clear, so the former president, has a smooth ride back to the airport.
It's funny they keep calling him the president, then I feel the need to correct themselves, former president.
Half a dozen vehicles here, these black SUVs.
They still call George Bush like President George Bush, right?
Like they just arrived,
the Barack Obama. It's just with Donald Trump. Got to call him the former president.
Vehicle there, press vehicle, and another Sprinter van passing us now. Atlanta Fire Rescue truck and Atlanta.
All right, Joe Ripley reporting for us live outside Jefferson Street on that side of the jail.
Imagine if they actually convicted him and wanted to put him in jail. What are they? All these cops have to go in there with him?
Trump airliner will then fly back toward the northeast.
Such a silly premise.
And some interesting notes from our reporters on the ground and just some observation from here in the studio. It looked like the booking process took under 17 minutes.
Wow, yeah, that wasn't very long at all. I covered one story, and now he's leaving.
Hours from what I've been reading. And we did see him use the Jefferson Street entrance. He's the only defendant in this case to use that entrance. We're told it's because it's more secure. There are less people there. If you just saw
the Secret Service, they don't have Secret Service like Trump does.
That's where he was, and you could see the difference between Joe and Ron, who was on the Rice Street side of the jail. A lot more people over there. And we do know, according to the court docket that came out once he was booked, that he was booked on 13 charges, and his height and weight came in at 6'3", 215 pounds.
And that has been a point of conjecture for a lot of sports books from Las Vegas to the United Kingdom have been trying and taking bets about how many pounds Mr. Trump would weigh. And I thought of those stories that I have read this week about betting. People will bet on anything, but that has certainly been a subject that has received a lot of money on it.
That's really funny.
And another element that makes Georgia so special and so different. Once again, this is the fourth criminal indictment of the former president, and this is the first time we are getting these figures. So in a way, the sheriff was right. He would be treated the same as anyone else coming into the jail, but you know, he is a former president, so
well, except for the motorcade.
He has a motorcade, and so we did see a little bit of different treatment, but in and out, less than 17 minutes, and now you are taking a live
People
look
thought it
from
was going to
our
take like an hour, but no.
Tracker as
17
that
minutes,
heads back to
in and out.
Jackson. And if you all are just joining us, we want to just give you an update on what we've seen over the last couple of hours. Just before 5 o'clock, we saw former President Trump's plane take off from Newark, New Jersey. He landed in Atlanta around just after 7 o'clock. He walked off the plane, went straight to a black SUV. He did not give any remarks. And then that motorcade came down to the Fulton County Jail. He was brought into the jail, booked and released in under 17 minutes. So you are caught up right now. This is what we're seeing. It looks like a little bit, we're trying to get a better view for you there from our 11 Alive Sky Tracker, a little bit of movement on his counsel. We saw that this morning he actually replaced one of his lawyers, Drew Findling, no longer representing him, and he has been replaced by Steve Sadow.
All right,
broke,
so we
broke their
have
signal.
been watching this for just about an hour now. His plane landed a little after 7 o'clock this evening, and you know, I think we have been speculating about how long he would be on the ground in Atlanta before he was back inside that 757 on his way back to the Northeast. And it looks as though he may be certainly in that plane within about 65
Their production's so
or 70 minutes
weird. You
from the
can
time that
hear
they
the
touch down.
producers or whoever in the background.
The former president is unpredictable in what he may or may not do in terms of potentially talking to press or giving a statement.
It's interesting they
we
drive
just
right down
might
the
get a
center of the road.
statement once he gets back to the airport. For that, we will have to wait and see. If he does give a statement, we will bring it to you live. But once again, taking an aerial look over there, you were actually, if you were wondering what was going on in that car that you were just in, that is one of the cameras that is following that motorcade along. But right now we are taking an aerial view from that. And this has just been really a historic day. No matter which side of the aisle that you're on, Fulton County has never seen a former president get booked in that jail.
Yeah, no
and
county
now time will
has.
tell to see if we will see a potential mugshot of the former president like we've seen from several of his co-defendants throughout the week.
District
That'd be
Attorney
funny
Fani
if
Willis
he's
has
just
given
smiling.
until
He's all
12 noon
happy.
tomorrow for the rest of those who were indicted almost 2 weeks ago now to report. So we will see if all of them report by noon tomorrow. So that is her deadline.
And there's been a lot of movement this week when it comes to that. So we were here late Monday night when those indictments came up, and she gave her press conference probably around 11, around there, late in the night, and she did give that deadline. And so this week was when we first started seeing, I believe Monday is when we first started seeing a little bit of movement on people going and negotiating their consent bonds. And the reason that they wanted to negotiate a consent bond is so that they could do what you just saw there, go into the jail, be processed, and then they could go home. We do know that there are still some people who need to surrender, and they're going to have to do that.
I think there's like 9
at Friday, or the district attorney says that they'll be arrested. They'll be coming after them.
As far as traffic goes tonight,
how are they going to get to him though?
Are able to say in Atlanta it has been unencumbered. It has been a very easy night as far as the Trump motorcade, and that given the fact that there was a Falcons game at Mercedes-Benz Stadium tonight, so you have increased numbers of people in downtown Atlanta. That simply has not been a case, and we can see it right now that it is smooth sailing back to the airport.
Barely any cars on the road there. Very interesting to see. Speaking of just the case and just seeing some other things that we have seen today.
They probably
like
have
I
it
said,
blocked
some movement
off.
In his counsel, he's replaced Drew Findling with
Going
Steve
in that
Sadow.
direction.
We did
Yeah, it looks
also
like we'll
see
go
some
on the
movement
traffic going on the
timing
overpass.
of the trial, at least for one of his co-defendants, Kenneth Cheesebro. He put in a motion for
such a waste
trial.
of time. Could you imagine living
the
in
district attorney
Atlanta
motion, saying, okay,
and
we'll
having to
have
deal
your
with
trial on
all this
October 23rd, and the judge in the case, Scott McCaffrey,
for some
came
nonsense
back
case
confirming that. So right now he does have that trial date. And speaking of trials, we have our legal analyst standing by right now. We're going to head over to Zach Merchant to give a little bit of color on what we're seeing here.
Guys, you're right. Good evening. This is John Meixner with us now. You're currently a UGA law professor, but you spent years as a federal prosecutor before that. I want you to put your prosecutor hat back on. From a prosecutor's perspective,
is he George Soros funded? If not, then
this case that District Attorney Fani Willis
what's the point?
Yeah, thanks, Zach. I think the RICO charge is very expansive in this case. It's a very complicated case. One strong aspect is the sort of factual background in this case is pretty well known. There's not a lot of serious unknowns in the indictments, and I think Fani Willis, for the most part, knows what those witnesses are going to say when they get to trial, and that makes the path for preparation a lot easier.
Now, lawyers are always taught to think of a case from all angles. I know you spent the majority of your career prosecuting cases, but if you shifted gears and we're looking at this from a defense perspective, what do you think a defense attorney, what threads would they likely be pulling as we move forward into this case, presumably, at least for some defendants, eventually towards a trial?
Yeah, I think a few different things. One is the sort of procedural complexity that's involved in dealing with this kind of case. So if there are severances, so if there are different trials for different defendants, that can become more complicated for the prosecutor. And then I think the real issue is many of the charges requires the prosecutors to demonstrate that Trump or other defendants knew that they were making false statements when they were acting for some of those charges. And it's always difficult to prove the state of mind of individuals.
You're not going to be able to prove that.
We are watching right now on the monitors here,
false statements. Trump definitely thinks he won.
Presumably making its way back to Hartsfield-Jackson Airport. This is the biggest flashpoint of the legal challenges the former president faces, and that flashpoint happening right here in Atlanta. But it's not the only case that the former president faces. He's got 2 federal cases, one out of Florida, one out of D.C., the D.C. case being an election interference case in its own right, and another state case in New York. You were a federal prosecutor. You're familiar with challenging cases. What kind of wrinkles are, just logistically, these multiple cases going to pose for all of the attorneys and all of the witnesses involved here, and for that matter, the defendants?
Enormous challenges. I'll start with the prosecutors. Anytime you have overlapping cases like these, there's a lot of overlap between the Georgia case and the federal January 6th case. Anytime you have witnesses who are going to testify multiple times, that becomes difficult. Obviously, prosecutors aren't going to know exactly when things are going to happen. They've got to be well prepared. I think in these cases, you have a bunch of folks who are very well versed, who have been investigating these cases for a very long time, and they're ready to go.
How do prosecutors, and for that matter probably judges, to decide which case actually goes first? On social media, which is always a thing we're wary of bringing too far into the conversation, but folks have talked about it, almost feels like there's a line forming between these multiple cases, and different district attorneys, different prosecutors are trying to find their position in this queue of who actually takes the former president to trial first, and if there will be a trial before the 2024 presidential election?
Yeah, all good questions that are hard to predict. I think the judges are probably pretty mindful of cases that are going on in other jurisdictions. Some things are outside of their control. So Kenneth Chesebro filed a motion asserting his speedy trial right here in Georgia, and I think when that sort of thing happens, that pushes a case usually to the front of the line because defendants have specific rights to go to trial, and those are usually respected as best as possible.
Now, in this case, former President Trump's bond was set, what's known as a consent bond. It was agreed upon between the district attorney's office and his defense attorneys before he turned himself in today. That's, in one way, what helps him get in and out so quickly among all the other security concerns and the unique status of the former president. But one of the conditions of his bond was that he is ordered not to talk to other defendants, not to talk to other witnesses, including in his bond on social media. How do you anticipate, how big of a challenge do you think that will be for the former president?
Get you social media.
How do judges manage this sort of unique condition?
Yeah, usually law enforcement is investigating, making sure that folks are following the conditions of their bond. There's sometimes court officers who do that as well. It's very important to protect the integrity of the evidence, to protect victims and folks who might be at threat. And obviously, any case involving Donald Trump and social media, you don't know exactly what's going to happen. So I think there will be unique challenges here.
So if you're watching us right now, you're watching us likely on television, either online or over the air or over cable. We're seeing the pictures live right now. Of
I'm watching it on YouTube.
Motorcade moving back towards the airport, Hartsfield-Jackson. One of the unique components about criminal cases in the state of Georgia is that they frequently, almost always, are also on camera. Cameras are welcome in the court. What kind of dynamic, what kind of impact do you anticipate that will have as we move forward?
I think it's extremely important. Some of us are old enough to remember the O.J. Simpson trial and how that took the public sort of by storm. I think we're going to have that magnified even greater in the event of a trial. In this case, I think it's gone into
it's not
Fani
murder
Willis's
or anything.
decision-making. Part of the strength
So
of a RICO charge is it allows her a lot of latitude to tell a broad story, bring in a lot of evidence about the enterprise that was going on. And I think she's thinking about how the public is going to be watching these trials and taking in all the things that happened during that period of months.
You mentioned District Attorney Fani Willis's seeming decision to charge a large group of defendants, 19 in all, and you referred to it as telling a broad story to the jury. Others have commented that perhaps this is a misfire, a strategic mistake, in that the district attorney would have been better off taking this in pieces and charging smaller groups at a time. Talk to me about the pros and cons of each approach.
Yeah, so the con is, I think what we're already seeing is that it's procedurally very complex. Some defendants may assert a right to go to trial early on. Others, I wouldn't be surprised if the president files motions and is trying to delay things. So that presents problems if Ms. Willis had to try the case for some defendants at one time and then do another trial for other defendants. That makes everything more complex. It's the opposite of the approach taken by Jack Smith in the federal cases, just charging President Trump, trying to make things in a neat and tidy box. The pros are it allows her to bring in all of the evidence about everything that happened developing the fake electors scheme and all of the things that are contained in the indictment. And so it allows her in some ways to bring in
they're allowed to have this other
more
electors
comprehensive perspective of all of
so
the
it's so
things that are
funny
charged as crimes
Mike
here.
Pence just decided not to listen to him.
If you're presenting a complex case to jurors,
fake electors, that's a stupid term for
them. In some ways, it's human nature to want to see the full story as alleged. Is that part of the strategic choice here? That presenting almost the, again, we should say the prosecutor's version, because defense attorneys certainly are going to do everything they can to rebut the accusations, but prosecutors, in this case, with this broad indictment, are able to bring a full narrative.
I think that's exactly right. I think any prosecutor or defense attorney will tell you that trying a case is about telling a story. Lawyers are storytellers. Lawyers are folks who try to simplify complex things and break them down into easy to understand concepts for jurors. I think part of the benefit of the RICO statute is it allows Fani Willis to try to tell that entire story to the jury.
You spent time again as a federal prosecutor. We're seeing right now the liaison between local law enforcement and federal law enforcement, the Federal Secret Service at the very least today, vitally involved in the journey of former President Trump to the jail and back today.
Again, if he gets convicted, it goes to jail. What are these people just going to be in there all the time?
State and local law enforcement.
Yeah, there's normally substantial cooperation. I worked on many cases involving task forces that were combined, made up of FBI agents and local police officers. So they're pretty well versed in working together, both on investigations and on more sort of security or safety oriented things like what we're seeing today.
One of the components about the Georgia case, this Fulton County case, and we're actually going to take it back to the desk right now.
All right. Thank you so much, Jack, for giving us that information. Right now, we want to head to Jennifer Bellamy as we see that motorcade pulling back into the airport. Hi, Jennifer.
Yeah, Faith, we can see that happening right now. Just a short time ago, the former president was at the Fulton County Rice Street jail facility. But again, he has returned that motorcade, making its way into Signature Air and heading out to the Trump airplane. We noticed it didn't take quite that much time for the former president to get from the airport to the Fulton County jail or for him to get back here tonight. And so we are seeing that motorcade take that trip around the plane, and we will shortly be seeing the former president as he boards the plane to head back to New Jersey. Now, what we are anticipating is that the former president will make some sort of remarks, give some sort of comments or statements. We will be watching as this continues to unfold to see if he says anything and what he does say following that.
So witch hunt, that's what I'll
20
say.
Minutes or so over at the Fulton County jail. And guys, you want to remember the president,
Dark time in American history.
Here in the Metro Atlanta area around 7:03, and right now it is 8:13. So that shows you how quickly this entire process has gone. Touching down here at the airport here in Atlanta around 7:03, it is now 8:13, and he has returned to the airport to begin his journey.
His
back
airplane
to New
is
Jersey.
sick.
So we are seeing people start to exit these vehicles, and we will shortly be seeing the former president. We will be monitoring for the next few moments to see if he does make statements. We see some aerial microphones, and we also see some cameras right there, so we are anticipating that he will make some remarks. We will bring those to you as soon as they come, but we do know that the former president has now been booked here in Fulton County following that indictment. 13 charges, his fourth indictment here in the United States. 19 people total involved, indicted in this situation in Fulton County. And they did have until noon on Friday to surrender. That was the deadline issued by Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis. She has, we see that the former president has made that deadline. We are still waiting on some others, and we've seen a number of other people go through this similar process to turn themselves in here in Fulton County. So right now, again, we are waiting for comments from former President Donald Trump. You see there's a big group gathered right there on your screens in both of these images, and we are waiting to see what he might say following this booking process, this arrest process here in Fulton County in Georgia, in a state that has become very consequential in elections as he does seek the nomination for the Republican Party in a bid to return to the White House. So we will anticipate what he has to say. But again, we know that the former president, again, got here at 7:03 after a bit of a delay. We know there was some rainy conditions up in New Jersey that delayed him, but that still put him pretty on track. He had said on his social media platform, Truth Social, that he would be arrested around 7:30, and that is exactly very close to what we saw take place over at that Rice Street facility. Normally, an intake process takes a long time, and we believe it took about 20 minutes or so for the former president to go through that process at Rice Street Jail. We know that there was a lockdown there at the jail, nobody else coming in or out while this process was underway, and we know that the former president did get out very quickly, going in on the side that avoided contact with any of the media, with any of the press that had been out there, and the protesters that had been out there both in support and against him, and again avoiding contact with them and pretty much not causing too much
quick,
traffic
and easy
by not going through that downtown connector area on his way to and from the Fulton County facility. So again, we are watching right now. What you see on your screen is waiting to see if and what the former president has to say. It looks like he is now getting out of his vehicle. Let's hear what he has to say.
Thank you very much for being here. I really believe this is a very sad day for America. This should never happen. If you challenge an election, you should be able to challenge an election. I thought
Exactly.
It was a rigged election, a stolen election, and I should have every right to do that. As you know, you have many people that you've been watching over the years do the same thing, whether it's Hillary Clinton or Stacey Abrams or many others. When you have that great freedom to challenge, you have to be able to, otherwise you could have very dishonest elections. What has taken place here is a travesty of justice. We did nothing wrong. I did nothing wrong, and everybody knows it. I've never had such support, and that goes with the other ones too. What they're doing is election interference. They're trying to interfere with an election. There's never been anything like it in our country before. This is their way of campaigning. And this is one instance, but you have three other instances. It's election interference. So I want to thank you for being here.
Now, they
nothing
did something
at
wrong.
all, and we have every right, every single right, to challenge an election that we think is dishonest, that we think is very dishonest. So thank you all very much, and I'll see you very soon. Thank you very much.
Did you pardon yourself?
Did you pardon yourself? That would be
there
interesting.
are those comments from the former president Donald Trump as he begins the trek back to New Jersey after turning himself in here in Fulton County at the Fulton County Jail after the indictment by Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis. The former president saying it's a
Fanny.
sad day for America.
Call her
saying
Fanny.
This should never have happened.
So she
He
gets.
also called
I don't
the
care
election
about her
rigged and stolen,
pronunciation.
sticking with that narrative and saying
Sticking
that
with that
Hillary
narrative.
Clinton and Stacey Abrams, for other Democrats, had done the the same thing. He said that he did nothing wrong.
Well,
He
don't
calls
comment
this
if
entire
it's true.
process for this indictment and others that he is facing
It's a witch hunt.
election interference. He said that this is a form of campaigning. He said that he and others involved
We
had
just heard all
every
this.
right to challenge the election, and again, saying that he did nothing wrong here. So we are now seeing the former president make his way. He has stepped back onto that plane, and he will now be making his way back to New Jersey for about a 2-hour flight, if what holds true for him on his way down here returns true for his return back there. So again,
Waste
the
of
former president
time.
making a very
Giant waste
quick
of time.
trip, comparatively speaking.
2
to
hours
Fulton
there,
County,
2 hours
Georgia,
back,
here
plus the
today
hour.
to turn himself
5
in on
hours.
those indictments,
Luckily, he has an awesome
and
plane, and he
also
could probably do
making
stuff on
those
it.
remarks, calling him,
So dumb.
saying that he is innocent, and calling this a sad day for America, saying that this should not happen, claiming that this is a form of campaigning and election
Claiming.
interference. So again,
It
the
is.
former president about to make his way back to New Jersey. We have seen him arriving about 7:03, and right now it is 8:18. So a little over an hour here on the ground in Metro Atlanta for this process of turning himself in. He is one of 19
All right, I think
co-defendants
we'll
indicted.
cut it there. Very, very interesting. This whole thing is very interesting. Like I was saying like before, it's like, how are you gonna go and prosecute him and send him to jail and look at just to get him booked and all these places? There's all these the giant motorcade. The Secret Service has precedent over everything with presidents because it's in the Constitution. So yeah, it doesn't even make any sense. I've said this for a long time. You can't really prosecute a former president. You know, if someone's been president before, what are you going to do? You're going to have to build them a whole jailhouse, maybe do house arrest, fortify a house, and just keep them in there. Because what are you going to do? Like if they convict Biden, right? What are they going to do? They lock him in his Delaware home or something? Because the Secret Service is going to have to protect him. You're going to have a Secret Service in a jail all the time. It just doesn't even make any sense. But yeah, I guess we'll see how it unfolds next. I think it's pretty fascinating. I think he'll probably, he'll get. I don't know. I think he probably won't even get convicted in the first place. And if he does, the appeals court's definitely gonna just overturn it anyway. So it's just a waste of time. It's to get him money. It's an election interference, like Trump was just saying. It's stupid. But they're just gonna keep at it.
If you like this video, be sure to subscribe for daily news updates, smash that like button, share this video with your friends, and share your thoughts on the story in the comments below. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out.